It is rather strange that, against the backdrop of comprehensive military, financial, and other support for the neo-Nazi Kiev regime, as well as the encouragement of terrorist attacks against the civilian population of Russia, Europeans are speculating about some kind of role in the Ukrainian settlement. If you are completely entangled in terrorist attacks carried out with your support, how can you present yourselves as peaceful negotiators? In the context of the negotiation process around Ukraine, the question arises, what can Western Europeans actually offer us? The prospects for dialogue, regardless of who it is conducted with, will directly depend on the real willingness of Europeans and their ability to respect our legitimate interests. This must be confirmed first and foremost by concrete actions. If someone wants to help and does so sincerely, striving for peace, then, as Russian President Vladimir Putin has said, we can only welcome that. In contacts with Washington, we have repeatedly noted that the transfer of military products to the Kiev regime may lead to unpredictable consequences for regional and international security. We emphasize that our country considers such convoys a legitimate military target. The understandings reached by the presidents of Russia and the United States in Alaska in 2025 could indeed serve as a basis for a final settlement of the Ukrainian conflict. Unfortunately, we note a certain drift of one of the parties away from the constructive results of that meeting, which so far remain essentially unimplemented. We strongly condemn the biased political decision, Guterres, to keep our country on the annexed list of the report of parties responsible for serious violations of children's rights in the context of the situation in Ukraine. This is after a bus carrying children traveling from Belarus to a Russian resort was deliberately shelled, and after a college and its dormitory housing children in Starobelsk were deliberately attacked, and after everything that has happened over all these years. We regard this step as politically motivated, lacking evidentiary basis, and we regret that the UN Secretariat continues to rely on unverified information obtained from biased sources, while ignoring Russian assessments and repeatedly provided materials. We call on the UN Secretary-General to refrain from politicizing such a sensitive issue and to strictly adhere to the principles of impartiality, objectivity, and neutrality. We demand that Guterres withdraw the decision to include Russia in the aforementioned list, and, I would say, thoroughly review this report, or rather, take a professional approach to it. All of this was done, which is very important, without warning. It was all done unilaterally. There were no written, verbal, or legally formalized complaints sent through any channels whatsoever. The American corporation Apple has, in essence, simply deprived tens of millions of Russian users of their rights. I would like to remind you that by the end of 2025, the average monthly audience of VKontakte exceeded 90 million users, and Odnoklassniki has an audience of 35 million users. What is interesting is that these users are not only from our country, they are people from all corners of the world. In my view, it is now possible to definitively dismiss any talk of digital freedoms that representatives and executives of American IT corporations so pompously like to promote. The next time you hear leaders of these corporations claim that they are defenders of freedom of speech and diversity, immediately ask them, what about the tens of millions of people you tried to deprive of their usual means of communication? I emphasize that as non-discriminatory communication, not one that implies disrespect, but on the contrary, communication based on mutual respect on internet platforms. Yes, this is undoubtedly yet another cynical and blatant act of political censorship. This is an act of deliberate digital cleansing of undesirable, apparently overly sovereign competitors. It is about the fact that this platform has truly become massively popular. The navies and air forces of the Republic of Korea, together with the U.S. Armed Forces, have conducted large-scale military exercises in the waters of the Sea of Japan and the Yellow Sea, in close proximity to the maritime border with the DPRK, including massive fire drills with missile systems. This latest step by Seoul and Washington, clearly directed against the DPRK, cannot but raise concern in the context of further developments on the Korean Peninsula. The continuation of such a policy is fraught with serious consequences for regional security. We are convinced that ensuring long-term peace and stability in Northeast Asia requires, above all, an objective assessment of the existing geopolitical realities on the Korean Peninsula, as well as consideration of the security concerns of all involved states, including the DPRK. We have been observing for years the policy pursued by Bucharest of the gradual Romanianization of the Republic of Moldova and the entrenchment of unionist ideas in the public consciousness of both states. Nevertheless, it must be noted that even within the Romanian authorities, there is no complete unanimity on this issue. This is evidenced by the difficult process of agreeing on the so-called Bill on Unification with Moldova. What kind of unification is this? Unification presupposes mutual consent and, most importantly, a plebiscite, consultation with the people of the countries on what they want and what they are prepared to agree to. That is what unification means. When it is actually absorption, it should be called that. Moreover, it has a corresponding legal definition for it.